Too big, too hot. No alien male dared approach her until a human smiled back. Traders, travelers, and diplomats moved along the docking corridors, speaking in dozens of languages. It was a place where every species of the galaxy came to meet, trade, and observe each other. Among them, one figure moved in a way that made everything around her seem brighter and hotter. Lyra was hard to miss. Her form shimmered with a natural energy that radiated warmth, a literal glow that no one could ignore. Her eyes were a vivid amber, reflecting light like molten gold. Her hair flowed like liquid flame, catching and bending the station's lights. To many, she seemed untouchable, a creature of both awe and fear. Alien males approached and then retreated, whispering to each other. Some even turned pale when she passed, unable to risk her energy overwhelming them. "Too big, too hot, no one dares approach her," murmured a young trader from the distant planet Callian. His companion nodded, equally wary, their voices low enough to be lost among the station's hum. Lyra herself walked with confidence. She was aware of the whispers and stares. For most of her life, her species had warned her that others would fear her, that no one could truly match her strength or intensity. She had learned to move gracefully through that fear, keeping her dignity and her patience. Still, she could feel the isolation it caused. She often wished for someone brave enough to approach her without hesitation. It was exactly at that moment that a human appeared. Adrian stepped through the docking bay gates, his uniform neat, his expression calm but alert. He had been sent as part of a diplomatic mission from the Solarian sector, a human starship captain with no reason to fear anyone or anything. Humans were curious by nature, often bold, sometimes reckless, but always capable of seeing things differently than other species. Adrian noticed her immediately. Unlike the others, he didn't avert his eyes. Instead, he smiled, a simple, genuine smile that carried no judgment, no fear, no agenda. Lyra felt it almost as a physical sensation, a small warmth that reached her despite the glow she carried. For the first time in many cycles, she stopped in her tracks. A human had not fled, had not flinched, had not whispered nervously behind his hand. He had looked at her and smiled. Curious, she tilted her head slightly, allowing herself a small test. "You are not afraid?" she asked, her voice low but steady like the hum of energy in her body. Adrian shook his head. "Not afraid," he said simply. "I don't see why I should be. You are impressive, that's all." The words were disarmingly normal. No flattery, no trembling awe, just a statement of fact. Lyra's lips curved into the faintest hint of amusement. No alien male had ever said something so simple, so direct, without fear twisting their voice. Around them, the station seemed to carry on as usual, but Lyra felt a shift. Eyes still followed her, but now, instead of whispers of fear, some carried curiosity. Others, admiration tinged with surprise. Adrian had done something that no one else had. He had crossed the invisible barrier of fear. "Impressive," she repeated, letting the word hang in the air. "You humans, you are different." Adrian shrugged, stepping a little closer, careful not to crowd her. "We like to understand things. Fear doesn't help with understanding." Lyra studied him. Humans were indeed strange, bold, and unpredictable. Most other species would have avoided her entirely, some for pride, some for fear, some for survival instincts that could not override their respect for her power. Adrian was neither arrogant nor afraid. He was curious. He was interested. And more importantly, he treated her as if she were simply a person, not a danger or a prize. "You may walk beside me," she said finally, a statement that carried authority and an unusual hint of invitation. They began to move together down the docking corridor. Lyra's energy glimmered faintly around her, not as fierce as usual, but noticeable enough to remind onlookers of her presence. Adrian walked calmly beside her, his gaze attentive but relaxed. The contrast between the two drew attention, and murmurs spread quickly. "Did you see that? A human actually walked beside her," someone whispered. "She's not angry," another voice questioned. The station buzzed with speculation, but Lyra ignored it. For the first time, she allowed herself to enjoy the simple sensation of someone approaching without fear. They walked past shops filled with exotic goods, past alien travelers with shimmering fur or scales, past diplomats who were engaged in urgent conversations. And all the while, Adrian asked questions, simple ones, thoughtful ones. "What is this station known for?" he asked. Lyra's lips curved. "It is a crossroads of cultures and trades, a place where species meet and sometimes conflict, sometimes collaborate." Most come to see rare creatures or rare technologies or me in some cases. Adrian chuckled. I can see why, but there is more to a place than what can be seen at first glance. Lyra's amber eyes flickered. The human seemed to understand that the glow and power surrounding her did not define her entirely. He saw her as more than a display of energy or status. That alone intrigued her. Suddenly, alarms rang. Red lights flashed across the docking bay. A solar storm from the nearby star had intensified unexpectedly, threatening to overload docking systems. Docked ships shook slightly as the station's energy shields adjusted. Traders and travelers scrambled. Lyra's energy responded instantly to the disruption, her glow brightening. Her species naturally channeled energy to stabilize environments in emergencies, and her presence helped maintain balance within the station's power grid. Humans, however, did not have this ability. They relied on ingenuity and machines. Adrian observed the chaos, assessing the situation quickly. "You can stabilize the station?" he asked, not in doubt but in practical interest. "Yes," Lyra replied, her voice calm despite the danger, "but only for a short time. The station requires mechanical assistance as well. Will you help?" Adrian's response was immediate. "Of course, show me what to do." For a few moments the pair worked together. Lyra's energy radiated warmth and control, and Adrian's hands moved over consoles and machinery, rerouting power, adjusting shields, and calculating safe pathways for the docked ships. It was a sight that drew many to watch, the enormous, powerful alien and the determined, clever human working side by side to save lives and property. As the storm subsided, the docking bay settled. Systems normalized. Travelers returned to their paths, muttering praises under their breath, and aliens who had never dared approach Lyra watched her in awe, but her attention was on Adrian. "You did well," she said, her voice carrying a hint of respect. "Few could act calmly in the midst of chaos." "Most would have panicked," Adrian smiled faintly. "Humans are used to problems that seem impossible. It's easier to act than to panic." Lyra considered this. Perhaps humans really were different, brave, adaptable, and remarkably calm in situations that terrified other species. And this one human had faced her without fear, had assisted her without hesitation, and had remained himself amidst the energy she carried. "You may be intriguing," she said softly, almost as if speaking to herself. Adrian raised an eyebrow, sensing the faint shift in her demeanor. "Intriguing is a good start," he said lightly. Lyra allowed herself a small laugh. It was rare, and the sound was like wind through a canyon, light and resonant. "Yes," she agreed. "A good start indeed." As the station's lights returned to normal, she walked beside him in a new way, not as a spectacle to be feared, but as a being curious about someone who dared to see her differently. The whispers around them continued, but now they carried fascination rather than fear. For the first time in a long while, Lyra felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Hope that perhaps someone could understand her, not just admire her from a distance. And as they moved through the starport, she couldn't help but glance at the human beside her. Adrian, the one who smiled back, the one who didn't flinch at her heat or power, the one who might just be the beginning of something extraordinary. The docking bay was calmer now. Travelers returned to their routines, and the emergency alarms had faded into the station's background hum. Yet, for Lyra, calm did not mean quiet. Her mind was alive with thoughts she rarely allowed herself to have. The human, Adrian, remained beside her, walking through the bustling corridors with an easy confidence that no alien had ever shown her. Lyra could feel the subtle shift in the station's atmosphere. Other species still glanced at her with awe, but the tension of fear had softened. Curiosity replaced it, sparked by the human who had dared to walk beside her. It was both strange and refreshing, and she felt an unfamiliar pull to understand him. Adrian, for his part, seemed entirely at ease. He noticed the station's peculiar social dynamics, the way beings of different sizes, shapes, and energies avoided each other or treated one another cautiously. But he did not see barriers in Lyra. He only saw a being who was intelligent, capable, and fascinating. His smile, calm and steady, remained as he spoke. "You handled that storm well," he said, glancing at her. "Many would have faltered under such pressure." Lyra's glow dimmed slightly, a subtle sign of her amusement. "Pressure does not frighten me," she replied. "It is expected." "Most who fear it lack understanding of the forces around them," Adrian nodded. "Understanding changes everything. That is what I like about humans. They try to see rather than avoid." Lyra's amber eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Humans were indeed different. Their strength was not always in size or raw power, but in their willingness to observe, to adapt, and to learn. That intrigued her far more than the usual displays of dominance she encountered. They walked together into a quieter sector of the station, lined with observation windows that overlooked the sun-scorched planet below. Massive storms raged across deserts of crimson sand, lightning arcing through golden clouds. Lyra's eyes softened as she observed the world outside. "This planet," Adrian said, following her gaze, "is remarkable. The storms are dangerous, yet there is beauty in them. Life persists despite extremes." Lyra nodded. "Life adapts. My species respects extremes. It teaches us strength and control. Many, however, are afraid of extremes and retreat." Adrian smiled faintly. "Some should face extremes more often. Fear teaches caution, but not always wisdom." Lyra regarded him closely, noticing his unusual perspective. No alien had ever spoken with such clarity or simplicity. Most would try to impress her with power, wealth, or knowledge. Adrian did none of that. He simply understood. Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a small creature scuttling across the observation deck. It had iridescent scales that glowed faintly under the station's lights. Lyra instinctively reached out her hand, allowing the energy around her to calm the creature. It paused, tilting its head curiously at her presence. Adrian observed quietly. "You can do that," he said with wonder. "You calm it with yourself." Lyra shrugged lightly. "It is a small thing. Many fear beings more powerful than they are. Energy is not always destruction. It can be guidance." The creature's eyes glimmered as it approached her hand. She smiled faintly, and Adrian caught it. A small, simple connection formed between them, the first of many that would shape their understanding of each other. "You seem fearless around it," Adrian said, his voice calm but filled with curiosity. "I am not fearless," Lyra replied. "I understand what I can influence." "Fear does not assist me. Control does." Adrian nodded thoughtfully. Humans often relied on intellect to face dangers, using reason where others might react purely with instinct. Lyra could see that he was not just observing her. He was analyzing, learning, adapting. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a sudden alert. A small docking pod had malfunctioned near the edge of the station, threatening to collide with the observation deck. The creature she had been calming squeaked nervously and scurried away. Lyra's energy flared instinctively. She moved toward the docking bay control panel, her glow intensifying. Adrian followed, his hands already reaching for the terminal controls. Together, they worked quickly. Lyra projected a subtle energy barrier, slowing the pod's descent while Adrian calculated a safe trajectory using station systems. They moved in perfect rhythm, her energy and his technical skill complementing each other seamlessly. The pod's descent slowed just enough to prevent collision. Docking clamps engaged, securing it safely. Lyra's glow dimmed as the immediate danger passed, and she exhaled softly, a rare display of relief. "You work well with humans," Adrian said, genuinely impressed. "Few beings can collaborate without misunderstanding or fear." Lyra's lips curved slightly. "Few humans work without arrogance, I find. You are different." Adrian's gaze softened. "I like to think curiosity guides me more than pride." For a long moment, they stood side by side, watching the calm aftermath of the pod's near accident. The station's visitors and workers began whispering, noting the unusual teamwork between the human and the fiery alien. Many species had avoided Lyra for centuries, yet here she was, working alongside a human as if it were the most natural thing in the galaxy. Lyra's thoughts drifted to her own experiences. She had always expected isolation, distance, and reverence mixed with fear. But Adrian, he treated her differently. Not as a threat, not as a spectacle, not as someone to be feared or worshipped, simply as someone to understand and appreciate. "You humans, you do not fear what you do not understand," Lyra said quietly. Adrian smiled. "We try not to. Fear is easy, understanding that takes effort." A soft laugh escaped her, a sound rare and light. "Effort is admirable. Many would rather admire from a distance than risk engagement." Adrian's eyes twinkled with curiosity. "Sometimes engagement is the only way to truly see." They continued walking through the station, now moving toward the central commerce ring, where exotic goods and rare technologies were displayed. Traders from across the galaxy shouted and negotiated, each species demonstrating its unique skills. Lyra's presence naturally drew attention. Some beings paused in fear, others in fascination, but all noticed the human walking calmly beside her. Adrian spoke quietly. "You are well known, I gather. People fear you, respect you, maybe even envy you." Lyra's amber eyes flickered with a mix of pride and weariness. "Yes, many admire me from afar, but no one dares approach. It is lonely." Adrian regarded her with genuine curiosity. "Lonely because of fear or because no one understands you?" Lyra considered this. "Both." "Fear keeps most away. Understanding is rare." Adrian's expression softened. "Then perhaps you just need someone willing to learn, someone willing to see you as more than what others expect." The words resonated with her more than she expected. Few beings ever spoke so openly about her loneliness, and fewer still acknowledged it without judgment. She felt a warmth that had nothing to do with her energy signature, a human warmth that seemed comforting, steady, and inviting. As they reached the commerce ring, Lyra noticed a stall displaying miniature starship models. Adrian paused, picking up a small model and examining its details. "These are fascinating," he said. "The craftsmanship, the thought put into their design." Lyra leaned closer, her curiosity piqued. "You study them?" "Always," Adrian replied. "Even the smallest creations tell a story. Even the tiniest mechanism can reveal intelligence and care." Lyra studied him, noting how human curiosity was genuine and unassuming. Most beings she encountered would either ignore such details or claim them as proof of superiority. Adrian simply admired them quietly, without comparison. "Perhaps humans are better observers than I realized," she said softly. Adrian looked up and met her gaze. "We see what is often overlooked. It's a skill and one that helps us survive." Lyra allowed herself a small smile. "You are intriguing, human. Do you always speak with such thoughtfulness?" Adrian grinned faintly. "Not always. Sometimes I just smile." Lyra's amber eyes held his for a long moment. The station's bustle faded around them. No whispers, no fear, no envy, just two beings, different in every way, sharing understanding in its simplest form. For Lyra, this moment was unusual, rare, and quietly thrilling. Perhaps humans were more than just fragile beings in a galaxy of power and danger. Perhaps they were capable of something extraordinary: courage without aggression, curiosity without arrogance, and the rare ability to connect across species. As they walked deeper into the station, Lyra felt a strange but pleasant anticipation. Something about this human was different, and she could not ignore it. For the first time in many cycles, she wondered what it might mean to let someone approach, not just with courage but with sincerity. And Adrian, walking calmly beside her, smiled once more, unaware of the stir he had caused, unaware of the impact his simple presence had on the most powerful, most feared, and most extraordinary being in the station. The sparks of curiosity had been lit. Across the stars, something new had begun. The station hummed with life, a constant mixture of voices, energy fields, and moving machines. Lyra moved through the corridors with the quiet authority that came naturally to her species. Her glow pulsed softly, not from alarm but from her presence, a subtle signal to all nearby that she was in control. Adrian walked beside her, calm and observant. He had spent hours studying the station systems, noting the unique technologies and the unusual ways energy flowed between species. Lyra had noticed his attentiveness from the start, and it was rare for her to meet a being who observed without fear or pretense. Humans, she had discovered, were strange in the best way. They were small, fragile in some ways, yet extraordinarily adaptable. And Adrian, he was the most unusual human she had ever encountered. The pair approached the station's central hub, a massive chamber filled with consoles, holographic displays, and monitoring stations. The hub controlled docking bays, energy shields, environmental systems, and communications across the orbital station. Here, Lyra felt a subtle tension. Something was off. "Something wrong?" Adrian asked, glancing around at the displays. Lyra nodded, her amber eyes narrowing slightly. "Yes, energy fluctuations in several systems, not dangerous yet but unusual. Likely a malfunction or interference." Adrian moved closer to a console. "We should investigate before it becomes serious. Where do we start?" Lyra gestured with a hand, and a wave of her energy illuminated the room's complex panels. "Follow me." "I can trace the anomalies, but human assistance is required to stabilize mechanical and digital systems. Alone, I could manage only partially. Together, we can prevent disaster." Adrian nodded, appreciating her straightforwardness. Humans often relied on collaboration. Apparently, this powerful alien did as well. They moved swiftly through the hub, accessing panels and scanning subsystems. Lyra's energy flowed along the conduits, interacting with circuits in ways humans could not. Sparks of golden light traced patterns along the walls, and Adrian followed the schematics on the displays, rerouting circuits, calibrating stabilizers, and overriding faulty systems. "It's fascinating," Adrian said, his voice calm but excited. "Your energy interacts with technology in ways I could never anticipate. Humans cannot do this naturally." Lyra glanced at him. "Few beings understand the balance between energy and matter. Many fear it. You observe without fear." Adrian smiled. "We observe because it's necessary. Fear gets in the way of solutions." Lyra allowed a small smile herself. She could see the truth in his words. Most species avoided her or tried to manipulate her power, but Adrian simply worked with it, complementing her abilities rather than competing. As they reached the source of the anomalies, a sudden surge of energy pulsed through the room. Lights flickered. Panels beeped urgently. One of the station's environmental stabilizers began to overload. "Contain it!" Lyra commanded, her voice calm but strong. A ring of golden energy formed around the destabilizing panel, holding it steady. Adrian quickly adjusted controls, redirecting power and engaging auxiliary systems. His hands moved with confidence, guided by logic and quick calculation. Together, they stabilized the machine just as sparks threatened to leap from the circuits. Breathing evenly, Lyra looked at him. "Humans, you are capable of swift action under pressure. Impressive." Adrian shrugged lightly. "We have to be. Survival depends on it." The compliment surprised her. She was used to hearing awe, fear, or flattery. Rarely did anyone acknowledge her competence while remaining competent themselves. Adrian was different. He respected her, and she respected him. That mutual understanding created an unusual connection. As they continued inspecting the systems, Lyra explained the station's energy networks in detail. Adrian listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions. He was curious but not intrusive. Unlike others, he did not assume superiority over her knowledge or her species' abilities. "You see," Lyra said, "most beings fear energy they cannot control. They avoid, retreat, or attempt to dominate. You approach it with understanding. That is rare." Adrian nodded. "It makes sense. Understanding allows for cooperation, not conflict. It's more efficient that way." Lyra studied him, noting the simplicity and wisdom in his words. "Efficiency is one reason humans survive in difficult environments, is it not?" "Yes," he replied. "We adapt quickly. We fail, learn, and try again. Fear slows us. Curiosity drives us." Her amber eyes flickered with approval. Humans were fragile in many ways, yet their minds were strong, adaptable, and willing to take risks others would never attempt. Adrian embodied all of that. The moment of calm did not last. A sudden alert rang through the hub. A secondary power surge threatened the main docking bays. If uncontrolled, it could disable the docking clamps, sending several ships drifting dangerously close to the station's edge. Lyra's glow brightened immediately, energy coursing through her hands as she prepared to stabilize the systems. Adrian moved swiftly to the control panels, coordinating with both the station's computers and Lyra's energy field. "This requires trust," Lyra said quietly. "I cannot manage all of it alone. You must act quickly, precisely." Adrian nodded without hesitation. "Understood, let's do it together." They moved as one. Lyra's energy created protective shields around the critical systems, absorbing excess currents and redirecting unstable energy flows. Adrian engaged auxiliary circuits, rerouted power through safe pathways, and calculated safe trajectories for all docked ships. Sparks of light danced around them, the room alive with danger and brilliance. The surge intensified, pressing their teamwork to its limit. Lyra's energy pulsed in perfect rhythm with the station's systems, while Adrian's logic guided the mechanical components. Their collaboration was seamless, human ingenuity and alien power complementing each other in a display of perfect coordination. Finally, the surge subsided. Systems stabilized. Docked ships held steady, unaffected by the potential disaster. Lyra's glow dimmed, a sign of her relief, while Adrian exhaled and leaned back slightly, satisfied with the outcome. "You handled that well," Adrian said, admiration clear in his voice. "Few beings could manage so many variables at once." Lyra allowed a small smile. Few humans would have attempted it either. Most would have panicked or retreated. Adrian shook his head. I don't panic easily, it doesn't solve anything. The simple statement resonated with her. Humans were strange indeed. Small, fragile, yet capable of extraordinary resilience. She felt a rare respect, not fear, not admiration, but respect, and she knew it was mutual. Adrian did not see her as a threat or a prize, he saw her as a partner. As the immediate crisis passed, the station's staff began to whisper. Alien species had observed the unusual pairing, a fiery, imposing alien and a calm, clever human managing the station's energy systems together. Many whispered in disbelief, some with admiration, some with envy. But Lyra did not care. She focused on the human beside her, the one who had approached her without fear, who had worked with her without arrogance, who had smiled at her simply. You humans, you surprise me, Lyra said softly, her voice carrying both curiosity and amusement. Adrian grinned faintly. Good surprises are worth noticing. For a long moment they walked in silence, the hum of the station surrounding them. Lyra's thoughts wandered. She had spent countless cycles feared, admired, and avoided. She had expected isolation, distance, and respect mixed with caution. But Adrian, he had crossed all those barriers with nothing more than calmness, intelligence, and a smile. You are not like others, she said finally. You do not fear me, you do not pretend, you simply exist beside me. Adrian looked at her, his gaze steady. Existence is better when shared, even in danger, even in difference. Lyra's amber eyes softened. She had never met anyone who spoke so honestly, who treated her so plainly and yet with respect. Most beings saw her as a challenge or a spectacle. Adrian saw her as a being, a partner, a collaborator, a mind to understand. As they reached the central plaza of the station, Lyra noticed a small crowd gathered around an exotic trade exhibit. Beings of all shapes and sizes observed rare artifacts, glowing minerals, and miniature starship models. She realized that for the first time, she felt comfortable moving through a crowd with someone by her side. Not because she needed protection, but because she felt understood. Adrian's calm presence had changed something within her. The fire in her energy, the intensity of her being, no longer felt isolating. It felt shared. And as they walked together, Lyra felt a quiet excitement. Perhaps humans were capable of something more than their size and fragility suggested. Perhaps courage, curiosity, and calm observation were just as powerful as energy manipulation, strength, or command. And perhaps one human, one smile could change everything. Across the stars, a new connection had been formed, not of dominance or fear, but of understanding, respect, and a spark of something extraordinary. The station's observation deck vibrated faintly as the sun flared violently in the nearby system. Bright streaks of plasma illuminated the docking bays, casting long shadows across consoles and walkways. Lyra stood at the center, her amber eyes glowing brighter than usual. Her energy pulsed, responding instinctively to the solar activity. This flare is stronger than predicted, Adrian said, scanning a console with focused intensity. If it hits the docking bays at full force, we could lose several ships, maybe even damage the station's outer hull. Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. Then we must act. The surge will be chaotic and unpredictable. Alone, I could stabilize the energy for moments, but the station requires mechanical and digital guidance as well. Adrian nodded. Then we work together. We have no other choice. The human moved quickly to the control panel while Lyra extended her hands, allowing her energy to flow into the station's circuits. Sparks of golden light traced the conduits, and a hum of power resonated through the chamber. Energy that would have overwhelmed most beings was under her control, yet it remained volatile, flickering dangerously with each solar pulse. You must follow my lead, Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. Timing is everything. Adrian nodded, hands flying over the console. Understood, let's synchronize. The station trembled as the first wave of solar plasma hit the shields. Lyra's energy flared, forming protective barriers around the docking bays and stabilizing the outer conduits. The air shimmered with heat, but her focus never wavered. Adrian directed auxiliary power through the stabilizers, adjusting shield frequencies to complement Lyra's energy. He calculated safe pathways for all docked ships, rerouting power and compensating for the solar fluctuations. His calm presence grounded the chaos. You are remarkable, Adrian said, voice steady despite the tension. Most beings would panic under this much energy. Lyra's amber eyes softened briefly. I am not most beings, but even I cannot do this alone. That is why humans can be useful. Adrian glanced at her, a faint smile on his face. Useful and reliable, that works both ways, doesn't it? The solar flares intensified, and energy arcs began forming across the deck. Lyra's glow brightened, pulsing in rhythm with the station's systems. Adrian noticed a spike in her energy. Her form radiated heat, not dangerous, but intense enough to make others nearby keep their distance. Careful, Adrian said. The next surge could overwhelm the stabilizers. We need precise timing. Lyra's hands moved with practiced precision, diverting energy and absorbing excess currents. Trust me, she said simply. I do, Adrian replied, adjusting a series of controls in tandem with her movements. But I also have to keep us alive while trusting you. The combination of alien energy and human ingenuity formed a perfect harmony. Energy flows stabilized, shields held, and the docking bays remained secure. Yet one massive surge loomed, larger and more volatile than the previous ones. This is the final wave, Lyra warned. We must act together, perfectly synchronized. Any mistake could be catastrophic. Adrian's hands flew over the panels, his mind calculating probabilities, energy flows, and safe paths for every vessel in the bay. Ready when you are, he said. Lyra extended her hands fully, letting her energy expand across the chamber. The golden glow intensified, filling the room with warmth and light. Adrian engaged the auxiliary systems, rerouting power and stabilizing shields. They moved as one, her energy guiding the station's natural currents, his logic controlling the machines that maintained stability. The surge hit. The station shook violently. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and alarms blared. But Lyra's energy held, a shield against disaster. Adrian's hands worked tirelessly on the controls, rerouting, compensating, predicting. The surge intensified further, and for a moment it seemed the station could not hold. Lyra's energy flared brighter, heat radiating through the chamber. She felt the strain but did not falter. She relied on Adrian, and he relied on her. Almost there, Adrian muttered, voice calm despite the chaos. Just a little longer. Lyra's focus sharpened. Her energy pulsed with precision, shielding the docking bays, stabilizing conduits, and absorbing excess plasma. She felt a strange rhythm, the pulse of the station, the flare of the sun, and the quiet determination of the human beside her. Then, gradually, the surge began to subside. Shields held. Docking bays were secure. The station trembled once more but remained intact. The crisis had passed. Lyra exhaled softly, a sound of relief that carried more emotion than she usually allowed. It is done, she said. Adrian leaned back from the console, wiping sweat from his brow. We did it together. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the station returned to its normal rhythm. Travelers and station staff emerged from shelters, murmuring in admiration and awe at what had just occurred. They had witnessed something extraordinary. A human and a powerful alien working together seamlessly to save the station from disaster. You are different from what I expected, Lyra said quietly, her amber eyes reflecting both the golden glow of the chamber and something deeper, a rare admiration. Adrian smiled faintly. Different can be good. Sometimes it's the difference that makes a difference. Lyra allowed herself a small laugh, the sound soft but genuine. Perhaps humans are more than fragile beings. Perhaps you carry something beyond mere survival. Adrian glanced at her, curiosity and warmth in his eyes. We do. We adapt, we learn, we face what others avoid. And sometimes we smile. Lyra studied him, noticing how simple gestures could carry so much meaning. The human beside her had approached without fear, worked without arrogance, and now, in the heat of near disaster, had matched her energy with intellect and courage. You humans surprise me, she admitted softly. Good surprises are worth noting, Adrian replied with a grin. The station staff slowly returned to normal duties, and the solar flare's energy waned. Yet the chamber remained charged, not with danger but with the quiet recognition of something extraordinary. Lyra's energy still shimmered faintly, a soft golden glow, while Adrian's calm presence provided balance. You trust me, Adrian said after a moment of silence. Lyra considered him carefully. Yes, trust is earned, not given lightly. You have earned it. Adrian's eyes softened. And you've earned my respect, not just for your power, but for your skill, your focus, and your calm. For the first time in many cycles, Lyra felt a connection that was neither fear nor awe. It was partnership, mutual understanding, something rare in a galaxy where most beings saw each other as rivals, tools, or threats. "You are intriguing," she said, her voice low, almost contemplative. Adrian chuckled. "And you're too big and too hot for most to handle," he teased lightly, referencing the whispers she had heard for centuries. Lyra's lips curved into a small, amused smile. "And yet you approach without hesitation." "That's because I see you," Adrian said simply. "Not the heat, not the size, not the rumors, I see you." For a moment, the golden glow of Lyra's energy seemed to soften, the heat settling into a warm, steady pulse. It was the first time she had felt truly seen, not as a being of power or fear, but as someone remarkable in a more human sense. They walked together to the observation deck once more, overlooking the sun-scorched planet below. The storm still raged across the crimson deserts, but the station remained safe. Lyra's glow pulsed softly in the calm aftermath, and Adrian stood beside her, observing quietly. "You humans," Lyra said after a while, "may be the strangest, most unexpected beings in the galaxy. You face extremes without fear, adapt without hesitation, and you smile when others would flee." Adrian smiled, a faint, steady expression. "We do what we must. Sometimes the galaxy is dangerous. Sometimes we meet beings who seem untouchable, but it's not fear that saves us. It's understanding and courage." Lyra studied him, her amber eyes reflecting both admiration and curiosity. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps courage and understanding are stronger than sheer power alone." Adrian glanced at her with quiet warmth. "Sometimes. And sometimes you just need someone willing to walk beside you." For the first time in her long life, Lyra felt that warmth, not from her own energy, but from a human beside her, calm, clever, and unafraid. She had always been powerful, feared, and admired from a distance. But now, she realized, there was something extraordinary about connection without fear. The observation deck glowed softly as the station returned to normal operations. Travelers and staff moved about, unaware of the rare bond forming in the midst of their bustling routines. Lyra and Adrian stood side by side, a human and a powerful alien, neither dominating, neither fearing, but simply working, understanding, and sharing a quiet, extraordinary trust. Across the stars, a new chapter had begun. Sparks had been lit. The heat of the station, the flare of the sun, and the calm of humanity had created something neither had expected, a partnership that might change not just them, but the way species across the galaxy viewed courage, understanding, and connection. And as they stood together, Lyra allowed herself a thought she had never dared. Perhaps the galaxy was not so isolating after all if someone could truly see her and smile back. The station glimmered in the light of a distant sun. Docked ships sparkled along the orbital bays, their hulls reflecting the golden glow from the nearby star. After the solar flares and energy surges, the station hummed with renewed life, its systems stabilized, and travelers cautiously returning to their routines. Lyra stood in the central hub, her amber eyes reflecting both the energy of the station and the golden rays streaming through the observation windows. Her glow was soft, steady, almost serene, a stark contrast to the immense power she had wielded during the crisis. Beside her, Adrian adjusted the last of the stabilizers, ensuring that every conduit, shield, and auxiliary system functioned perfectly. Despite the exhaustion evident on his face, his calm demeanor never faltered. Humans had a unique way of enduring pressure, and he had proven it once again. "Everything is stable," Adrian said, finally leaning back from the console. His gaze swept the hub and then rested on Lyra. "The station should hold now. The docking bays are secure, the energy flows are balanced, and the ships are safe." Lyra allowed herself a faint smile. "You humans are remarkable. Your resilience and focus under pressure are admirable." Adrian chuckled softly. "We survive, we adapt, that's what we do. But I must admit, I could not have done it alone. You guided me every step of the way." Lyra's glow pulsed slightly, a warm rhythm that matched her subtle excitement. She had always been powerful, respected, and feared across the galaxy. Yet in all her cycles, no one had ever worked alongside her so effortlessly. Humans, she realized, had an unexpected strength, calm courage, clear thinking, and the ability to act under pressure without being overwhelmed by fear. "I admit," she said quietly, "I did not expect a human to stand beside me, not just in courage, but in understanding." Adrian turned to her, expression calm but earnest. "Understanding makes cooperation possible. Fear only limits what can be achieved." Lyra studied him, reflecting on all they had endured together. The energy surges, the unstable systems, the solar flare, each challenge had tested both of them. But together they had not only stabilized the station, they had demonstrated something rare, that collaboration across species could overcome even the most dangerous threats. "You trust me," Adrian said suddenly, breaking the silence. Lyra tilted her head, considering him. "Yes. I trust you, not because I must, but because you have proven worthy. And you have earned my respect," Adrian replied softly. "Not just for your power, but for your intelligence, your skill, and your courage." The moment was quiet, yet charged. Not with energy, but with understanding. Across the galaxy, beings might fear or admire her, but here in the center of the station, she felt something rarer: partnership, genuine respect and connection. The station's public announcements resumed, broadcasting news of the crisis averted. Travelers and station staff whispered among themselves, amazed at the human and the alien who had worked together to prevent disaster. Aliens who had previously avoided Lyra now watched her with curiosity and cautious admiration. Humans, it seemed, could bridge gaps that others could not. "You have changed something," Lyra said softly. "Not just me, perhaps the way this station, even this sector, views humans." Adrian smiled faintly. "Maybe, but change is often small at first. It grows quietly like sparks across the stars." Lyra looked at him, her amber eyes reflecting the golden sunlight. "You are different. You face extremes calmly, you adapt without fear, and you smile when others would flee. That is rare." Adrian's expression softened. "Humans survive because we see beyond fear, we see possibilities, and sometimes we choose to walk beside those who inspire us." Lyra allowed herself a small laugh, a sound warm and resonant. "I had not expected someone like you." Adrian shrugged lightly. "Neither did I, but sometimes the universe surprises us." For a long moment they stood together, silent except for the hum of the station and the distant rumbles of the planet below. Neither spoke of power, dominance, or fear. Instead, they shared something rare: mutual understanding. "You have changed my perspective," Lyra admitted. "Humans are more than I imagined. You are capable of courage, clarity, and calm where others falter, perhaps even more extraordinary than power alone." Adrian nodded. "Courage is not about size or strength, it's about facing what others avoid. And sometimes it's about seeing someone for who they are, not what they seem." Lyra's amber eyes softened. "You see me, truly. And you see me," Adrian replied quietly. "Not as weak, not as fragile, not as limited, we see each other." Across the station, whispers continued. Alien traders, diplomats, and travelers observed the unusual pair, noting the calm confidence, the effortless teamwork, and the quiet respect that flowed between human and alien. For centuries, Lyra had been isolated by her power, admired and feared but never understood. Now, with a human beside her, she felt a shift, a possibility of connection, of trust, of partnership across species. The rest of the station resumed its routine, but for Lyra and Adrian, the moment lingered. They walked side by side through the observation deck, overlooking the solar storm still raging on the planet below. The crimson desert swirled with golden lightning, beautiful and dangerous. Lyra's energy shimmered softly, in harmony with the sunlight and her inner calm. "You humans," Lyra said thoughtfully, "you approach extremes without fear, you adapt without hesitation, and you seem to understand what others cannot. Perhaps that is your greatest strength." Adrian smiled, a faint, steady expression. "Strength is often quiet. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply acts calmly and with understanding." Lyra allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. She had been feared, admired, and avoided, yet here she was, standing beside a human who had crossed the barriers of fear with nothing more than curiosity, intelligence, and a simple smile. "You are extraordinary," she said softly, almost to herself. "And so are you," Adrian replied. "Perhaps the galaxy needs more extraordinary connections rather than more fear." They moved to the station's central plaza, where traders and travelers began to notice something unusual. The great alien and the small human, walking together, working together, surviving together. For the first time, the idea of interspecies collaboration was not just a dream. It was visible, alive, and successful. Lyra's amber eyes met Adrian's, a silent understanding passing between them. This was more than cooperation. It was trust, respect, and a quiet admiration that neither had expected to find. "You have done more than stabilize the station," Lyra said quietly. You have shown me that someone can see me, understand me, and face me without fear. Adrian's eyes softened. And you've shown me that courage and power are not the same thing, that even the most extraordinary beings have strength in trust and understanding. For a long moment, they simply stood together, side by side. Around them, the station thrummed with life, yet nothing could disturb the quiet bond forming between them. Aliens and humans alike observed, taking note of a lesson the galaxy rarely learned. That fear should not define relationships and that understanding could bridge any distance. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice low but steady. Perhaps, together we can face more than one storm. Adrian's faint smile held both determination and warmth. Across the stars, perhaps we already have. The sun's light reflected on the observation deck, golden and brilliant. Lyra's energy shimmered in harmony with the sunlight, steady and controlled, a perfect complement to the calm presence of the human beside her. For the first time, she felt truly seen, truly understood, and truly connected. You humans, she said, her amber eyes holding his gaze, may be the strangest, most unexpected beings in the galaxy, yet you are extraordinary. Adrian's smile was quiet but genuine. And you are remarkable, Lyra. Not for the power you wield, but for how you use it, and for the trust you give to those who deserve it. The station continued its normal rhythm, ships moving in and out of docking bays, travelers and traders resuming their business. But something had changed. Across the galaxy, perhaps the story of a human and a great alien working together would spread. A story of courage, calm, understanding, and partnership. Lyra looked at Adrian, feeling a warmth unlike any energy she had ever carried. It was human, steady, and rare, a reminder that the galaxy was not only dangerous and vast, but also capable of extraordinary connections. You smiled at me, she said softly, and it changed everything. Adrian returned her smile. Sometimes a simple smile is more powerful than any energy or technology. Sometimes it sparks the universe in ways we cannot predict. Lyra's glow pulsed gently, a rhythm of approval and quiet joy. Perhaps, across the stars, this is only the beginning. Adrian nodded, his eyes reflecting the sunlight and her energy. The beginning of something remarkable for both of us and maybe for the galaxy too. And as they stood together, side by side, Lyra felt a truth she had never known. That no matter how powerful or feared one might be, connection, trust, and understanding could be far more extraordinary than even the greatest strength. Across the universe, a human had smiled back. And for Lyra, that simple act had changed everything.